Welcome to a special edition of the Crack On podcast. As you'll have noticed, I am not Jon Saunders. My name is Andy Taylor. I run a couple of businesses here in Cardiff. Bulb Limited, which is a podcast production company, and Accordion Innovation Limited, which is a tech startup. And I have known Jon personally and professionally for a while now. Huge respect for this guy, and I'm very honoured that he's asked me to interview him so that he is effectively a guest on his own podcast. So, a bit of a switcheroo, but he looks pretty happy with the situation. So, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go, mate. I'm ready to go.
Okay, well, I mean, you start these things in a quite set way, which is you ask your guests to go all the way back. So I'm going to do the same with you. Take us back to the beginning, your early years. What's the story?
So yeah, who is Jon Saunders? Right, Cumbrian boy, born in Pontypool. Mum Ruth, dad Paul. Funny enough, has been on the podcast. He was a real tough character to interview, to be fair. But yeah, born in Pontypool, raised in Crossy Cardiog. Went to North Road School when I was young. Head boy of all things there. Rugby captain, football captain, all that. Loved my sport. I think the sort of my love for sport came from when I was a young kid, that sort of age. And I went to secondary school, and secondary school really was where it sort of made or broke me really. Met a really good bunch of boys, and very luckily found them, because bit of a story on that. When I went from junior school to comprehensive school, I was with a group of lads in junior school. When I went to comprehensive school, we sort of got split up half and half. I found a new group of lads, and the other half went in a different side of the school, and bit one of those sliding door moments. And they've been my best mates ever since, really. And they're, I say successful people, but we've gone through a lot together, all 4 or 5 of us, really tight knit a group. So, and that's what I say comprehensive school made me, because Crossy Cardiog was a special place for me, especially sixth form. Sixth form particularly was a brilliant time in my life. One of the best times. Stereophonics was out. We're talking 1996, 97. And me and my mate was talking about it the other day back, just whenever phonics come on, the original come on, you always think then about those moments of sixth form. But every story I've got, in essence, when we catch up as the boys, sixth form stories always come out. And so yeah, deputy head boy at that school, again, rugby captain. Luckily in that football team and sport and cricket, I was very heavily involved in. And then I went from there to university in Cardiff, and I've stayed in Cardiff ever since.
So, Welsh through and through.
Yes.
What does being Welsh mean to you?
Really good starter. I'm a very proud Welshman. I'm very passionate about being Welsh. I think being Welsh is I'm very humbled to be Welsh. I think there's something very special about being Welsh. And I always feel very privileged to say I'm a Welshman, especially with a lot of my work now is over the bridge. But yeah, being Welsh is special. I think there's a real, I always want to play for Wales? I think I always wanted to do my best and be a Welsh international, but just being Welsh and being part of Wales means just so much to me. It's part and parcel of who I am. It's not just what I am, it's who I am. So, and I carry it with a lot of pride.
Obviously, I'm not Welsh. I've lived here for a few years now, but I grew up in England. I always found you, from the moment I met you, incredibly kind of inclusive and welcoming to someone who didn't grow up in Wales but was clearly living here. You don't get that from everyone, I can tell you from my own experiences. And I think we've talked about this before, kind of in private conversations we've had. What is that kind of, because I think it relates maybe to the Crack On spirit, that kind of positive Welsh welcoming spirit that you seem to have in spades. You tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, my dad's been a big influence on me since a young kid, and he is very much exactly, if you'd have met him, he's 10 times what I am on that level. He's friendly. And I've been, the humble upbringing I've had, my mum and dad were always that way inclined. And I agree with you with regards to being Welsh, that I will always say hello on the train to random people. I think there was a lady yesterday, I'm not sure if she really wanted to speak to me, to be honest. She definitely didn't give me the impression she did. And I love those moments where by the end of the journey, it's sort of like have a good day and enjoy your day, and then, you know, and that interaction. But yeah, my dad, like I said, I was lucky that, you know, my dad has installed that in me, and my mum, but my dad specifically, that it doesn't cost anything to be nice. But I don't see problems maybe as problems. I see them as opportunities. And maybe that Welsh spirit, maybe that Welsh underdog sort of fight is you know, definitely where crack on comes from. Because it's about, for me, it's like, how do you take that first step forward, and how do you get on with it? But part of being nice, again, going back to it, it's just, you know, I've always been told it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
So, and actually, I know it takes a lot of confidence to do it, and I know I probably come across as quite a confident person because I am on that level, because I just have always done it. But, you know, that's not to say I've never always been confident. There's moments in, you know, it takes me back to a time when I was in junior school and we were handing over the head boyship, and when you hand over the head boyship, you're meant to do a speech, and I remember just stood there, and words wouldn't come out, and it was a tough one. It was a real tough one that I was thinking about the other day back for some reason, and I walked off, and my mum was like, "You're okay, mate?" And I was like, "No, but I've never had that before, Mum." You know what I mean? Never had that before. So, you know, the point is, it happens to all of us, the confidence piece. And but I've always been really open around that, and I've also been very good with new people. And Richard Selby will vouch for that. If he listens to this, he'll laugh at that, because when he started secondary school, one thing I did put my hand up when he walked in the class. I sort of said, "Yeah, I'll look after him. I'm good with new boys." But now you probably get done for that.
You can't say that. Yeah.
But back in the day, he always reminds me of that. But you know, and thank you for sort of saying that it is a big trait that I feel is one of my biggest strengths.
Because that positivity can sometimes go a bit too far the other way, where you have to be able to see when things aren't working. You can't kind of positive your way out of everything. So how have you, growing up, how did you kind of learn those lessons about, you know, you mentioned getting up and doing that speech, and that was a moment of challenge for you, because you kind of glossed over when I asked you, you know, take us back to the beginning. You kind of glossed it. You're like, "Oh, did school, you know, went off to university." It all happened very quickly. But within that, there must have been moments where you weren't feeling confident and you had to learn the hard way. So are there some lessons or challenges or stories you can take us back where things didn't go particularly well when you were kind of in your formative years?
Yeah, I will say for the record, as in for me, that I've always been that sort of person that it's worked out for. And that sounds, I really don't want that to sound like as though a cocky person, but a lot of things have happened in my life that I've been very lucky to sort of, it's just worked out. And maybe that's just the way I look at it. Maybe that's just the way it's been. I've had a lot of times where, you know, things haven't quite gone my way. One that really sticks to mind, you know, however much I did get the deputy head boy of secondary school, I remember sat in my head teacher's room at the end of our tender of being a deputy head boy. Head boy, by the way, is one of my best mates, Stu Couch, who's still a best mate of mine. And she went around the room and said, you know, "Stu, fantastic job. You were just like one of the best head boys we've had." Natalie Carver was the deputy. She said, "Look, as a deputy, I couldn't have asked for any more from you. Thank you ever so much." Katie, as a head girl, again, just the best. She got to me and she didn't know my name.
Blimey.
She went, and I said, "John," and she went, "Yeah. You've been really good." And,
once more with feeling.
Yeah, and do you know what? I walked out and I thought, thank you for that. That really meant a lot to me. But again, it's one of those things that it has bothered me because it's obviously still in my mind. But lots of other people probably would have sat on that and gone, "Blinking heck, she hates me." I forgot about it as soon as I walked outside and walked down the stairs, really. But moments like that might not be the main one, but that when you said it, that was the main story that came to mind. But I've had others I've had others, history teacher sit me down for my A-levels and saying, look, mate, I don't think you're going to pass this. I think you should stop. But when I go away and just have a think about it, I always then come back fighting. And I think, for me, knowing myself more better, that's how to get the best out of me, you just got to give me a kick up the ass and give me a day to think about it.
Okay.
And then I either come back fighting. So, and that's happened quite often in my life since that point. But about, lots of downs, with so many ups.
Yeah. And I think you're naturally inclined to focus on the ups, which is, to your credit. You mentioned, you touched a bit on the sport there, obviously, captain of rugby and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that sport is where you have learned some of your most important lessons compared to maybe in the classroom?
Oh, 150%. There's no two ways about it. I think sport for me is part of me. It's a bit like you asked me the question about being Welsh. Sport and me go hand in hand. I don't remember a time where I've not played a game of sport. And I think those lessons, I am a firm believer that, team sport has done so much for me. That I've lost so many more than I've won. We used to play in a team, Crossy youth team, and I was the captain here as well. And we didn't win a game all year. And I remember it. We went to play against Clifton. Was it Clifton? It was a Bristol team, and it was the home of Thornbury. It was Thornbury, yes. And it was the last game of the season, and we'd never won. And we won by 1 point. And that whole season was forgot about, but that one day was what we trained for, But yeah, very much so sport has been a part and parcel of my life. And that losing bit has spurred me on to try and be as definitely replicated where I am with my hospitality days. Anything that I've done has always been about the team, not me. And that's always been very important to me.
What gets the best out of you in terms of sports wise and physicality? Because, you've just done Ironman for how many times is it now?
Yeah, I've done 2. This is my 3rd. A really interesting and poignant question now for me, because I'm going into my 3rd one. My 2nd one I did, I let myself down.
Okay.
So I didn't
train enough.
I didn't train enough. I came to the end and I kicked myself that even though the time anyone would have been proud of.
Well, just finishing it is.
Yeah.
I mean, lots of people don't complete that Ironman. I mean, it's the one in Tenby, isn't it? It's kind of the ultimate, really. It's a really tough course.
Yeah, it is, and lots of stories around that can be brought out, because I mean, the first one I ever did, there was 2 of us, like they do like this opening room where they stand up and say, right, tomorrow you're doing it, you're going into, it's been like a war cry, and they come up, they I don't know if you want to stop there for 2 seconds and close the windows.
Yeah.
My son is just coming in. Sorry,
No
I've
worries.
got this end of this.
No worries.
Do you want to close that window?
Yeah, I'm going to close the window.
I didn't realise how loud that would be. I know exactly where I can pick up on that end.
Happy so far?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, really good. Like I said, it ends up being a bit like a therapy session, and it's brilliant. It's good. It's what a good podcast
I'll
does.
hammer you down at the end.
Yeah. No, do you want to do that one as well,
Throw a
mate? Just to be on the safe side, because if anyone then does pull up.
The main challenge here is, I mean, we could do about 5 hours.
We could, mate. We could, yeah. Yeah, but your question is really good. I'm enjoying the line of questioning.
Cool.
So
Shall I ask that one again?
yeah, if you can, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a really good. I know where I'm going with it.
Okay, fine. Ready?
Yeah.
So sport has obviously been key to you growing up. You mentioned captain of rugby, and it's always been a part of your life. The Ironman is something that I want to talk to you about, because you've done, I think, 2 or 3 now. What's that been like as an experience, and what lessons have you learned?
Yeah, brilliant, mate. It's been, again, when you talk about sport and being part of me, Ironman now is the reason why I did it or started. Let me start from the beginning where it came from. I did it because I wanted to beat a couple of boys in my school. That's the honest truth.
The competitive instinct.
Yeah, they did it. They did a good time. I thought, no, I'm gonna go and do it myself, and I did it. But there was a lot around what I'm good at, and and I'm pretty good at that longer distance. And I've always been pretty good at having an engine. So at the end of a game, I would always class myself as fitter than most people. So I always knew I had an engine, but that's why I did the first one, and I posted a good time. There's no question of that. I posted a good time. I beat the two lads probably by an hour in the end, if not a little bit more. So I actually over surpassed myself. Because I didn't think I could do that either. I didn't know what the time was. I did it on a Casio watch. I just pressed start. Everyone had these fancy watches, which unfortunately I've now got.
To go with the fancy glasses.
Yes, and to go with the whoop and everything else I've got on, right?
We'll talk about tech later on.
Yeah. But again, when you talk about learnings, because that part is the learning journey. So the first two I did Casio watch, press start and go, and I trained with Casio, didn't do Strava, didn't do any stats. And but the second one, why did I do it? I ended it afterwards. COVID came, a few years went by, I then ended up doing it. And I was under choke. The night before, I didn't sleep easy because I knew the next day wasn't going to be very easy. The swim was a hard swim. The bike was hard, but the run, I gave up a bit on the run. I walked all the hills and I ran the downhills, which I told myself that before going into the race. And that isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be in a position where I'm telling myself to walk this and run that, because it's my race. I want to do what I'm telling myself, not someone else is telling me. So when I did my second one, over the line, decent time, I just thought, I'm not happy. I'm just not happy with that. I've got to go back. I've got to come back and do it again, and I'm going to do it probably next time. So, and this is, in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks Sunday, I go again. So by the time this is out, I'm hopefully would have been a 3-time Ironman. So, you know, and I want to, you know what, for me, the learnings is that it's only me I'm beating. It's only me I'm competing against. And I want to do a better version of what the last one did for me. Not really worried about anyone else, but secretly I have got a couple of people I want to beat because I know I've got to chase something. But I love that podcast that Matthew McConaughey does around chase yourself. Very much so with the Ironman. It's the competition's in me. And I've again reading a book about the upper ceiling. I don't know what the upper ceiling is. I thought the first one was really good, but who's to say that's my best? I don't know. So let's have a crack again and see how good I can become.
Do you get a lot out of physical exercise in general? Do you use it to clear your mind, to think about stuff? Is that something you need to do to stay on top of things? Yeah,
look, it's part, again, going back to my mum and dad. My dad is very healthy, and it's something that has been he was a PTI in the army, so he used to take the SAS. And when I used to wake up and come downstairs when I was 6 or 7, he would do press-ups, 100 press-ups every day with me on his back, or someone on his back, you know?
Yeah.
So sport has always been in my DNA. And it's something, I couldn't see where sport doesn't sit within what I do, because it's just so me and what I do. So, it's something I've just been very luckily, I say myself I'm very lucky. I've got to function with, if I don't have it in my life, I don't function as well as I could. So when I do coach people, I do one-to-one coaching, the first thing I always start with is how are you? What are you going to do for you? Because it's all well and good doing what you're going to do for other people, but what are you doing for you? And mine, selfishly, an Ironman is a very selfish thing to do. There's no question about it. It's all about me. My wife can't come on a 5-mile bike ride with me, or if she did, it would be very weird. Me giving her a backie on the back of my bike. So it's a very selfish thing in Ironman. But going back to that question you said about lessons learned, you've got to take the family with you.
Yeah,
all right?
Yeah.
And, I'm going to mention him because he's just literally just walked in off camera, but my boy is my biggest supporter.
Take your time.
Yeah, it's a good one, that. So the second time we did it, the second time I did the Ironman, I remember walking up. I think he's 19 now, so he would have been 15 or 16. But yeah, just remember the hug. And yeah, it was a strong hug. But it's about, and I think why I'm getting upset is because I put a lot into this one.
Yeah.
I put a lot of training into this one. More than I have done the last two. And my family have been brilliant, so,
They know how much you need it, I guess, and how much it means to you.
Yeah, 100%. And, yeah, they do. But again, I suppose that bit about coming to the reality of it being quite a selfish thing, it is. It is something that I know I'm doing for myself, but it doesn't go a day without them saying to me, we are proud of you. Well, I know they are. But yeah, that moment just got me a bit, because it is something that sticks in my mind.
And that was the second one. That was the one where you felt you hadn't performed.
Yeah, that was the one I didn't perform very well in my opinion. And the reason why the hug came about was because I still had a top on. And my boy was like, Jared, you're going in the water with that? And I was like, oh, no, of course I'm not. And I took it off and we just had a bit of a moment of a hug, But yeah, it is a journey. I think sometimes I flippantly talk about the Ironman like as though it's just an everyday event. But to me it is. But that doesn't mean I don't mean to be flippant in any which way. Because I know an Ironman for certain people is outstretched. But I will say that someone's 5K, that's why I get off on people doing physical activity, because I really love driving past people and seeing big people running, or people that look like they shouldn't be running, because it's like fair play to you.
Yeah.
Fair play to you. You know?
It takes a lot of guts to go out on the streets and run when you're not, like you say, not someone that you might be expecting to run. People are going to look at you. People are probably going to be judging you. And yet you still go out, put your trainers on and do it.
Yeah.
I think that's that's harder than someone who's got all the gear and, gets the Lycra on, gets on their £1,000 bike. You expect that person to be zooming along.
Yeah.
So is it about knowing where this is for every individual, is it about, and this might be part of the philosophy behind Crack On, I'd be interested, is it about knowing, what's your Ironman? Your Ironman might be a 5K, it might be 100-metre dash at the school parents race, whatever that is for you. It's about reaching for what's difficult, what's that stretch goal?
Yeah, and 100%. I think part of the Crack On, what Crack On means to me is exactly that. It's not about the distance. It's about the doing, and it's about and something I've not been overly strong with. So if you go back in time to my first one to where I am now, I didn't follow the coach's rules on the first one.
Why doesn't that surprise me, John?
But he was a really good coach, and I didn't listen to him. The second one I didn't. This one I've done every session. I've not missed a beat. Because I feel like as though I'm more coachable now, and going back to your point with regards to Crack On, there's been a movement and a shift in me I'm a different person than I was 10 years ago. I'm taking this Ironman in a totally different outlook on it. And if I don't do the PB, I'll go again next year if that's what's important. I'd love to, I want to go to Kona. I would love to go to Kona. I'm putting it out openly.
What's that then?
So Kona is the World Championships. That 11 hours that I posted first off is only about half an hour away from going to the World Champs.
Wow.
So, and I'm not saying this is the time for that, because it might not be. You can get a mechanical, you can do anything in an Ironman and get yourself in a position. But I want to go to Kona, and not just for me. I want to take my wife to Hawaii.
Nice.
So it's not about me then; it's about us.
Yeah.
And I want to beat Shane Williams.
So there's that competitive spirit again.
Yeah. And that's me. And
beat a Welsh international.
I'm glad this is going out after that. Because I didn't want that to really go out, because it's not something I'm coming after you, but he's got better and better the last 8 years.
Yeah.
He's done 8 in a row. Fair play to him, right? But he's got to 11 and a half hours now, and I know I've got 11, so I've got the PB in my bank. but last time he beat me, and I don't want that to happen again.
Right, we're going to go backwards to come forwards now.
Yeah.
There's so much that I want to talk about. Let's get into your career, right? We got up to kind of university, and then what first got you behind a bar and interested in the hospitality scene?
I've always been a natural, bartender-wise, I've been a bartender since 15, right? So as a trait, if you're looking at like psychometric testing, I'm very yellow. So, yellow is a flamboyant, extroverted. So I was born to be a bartender on that level, because I'd say hello to anyone. So, but at 15, 16, I was a bartender up in Crossy Cardiff Rugby Club. Luckily, some great people around me. And I, from there, Danny, the landlord, gave me a chance. And from there, I sort of, when I went to university then, I got a job down on Newport Road. For anyone who knows Cardiff, Newport Road is a main road going into Cardiff. And I worked in Megaball behind the bar. And funny enough, that's when me and Anne-Marie met 29 years ago. And she might say for her sins, but it's been a great 29 years. But that's where we met, and my career sort of, what Megaball did for me was sort of teach me, or I looked at managers like, what can I learn from this manager? And 9 times out of 10, it wasn't what they did well, it was what they didn't do well.
Yeah.
There were people stealing, there were people doing lots of things. It was probably one of the best teams I've been in, not because they were stealing, just because it was such a good environment. They were such a great team. So, and they had, we had 3 GMs in my time, and every one of them had their own strengths and weaknesses.
What's a GM?
General manager. So a general manager come in, but there were so many poor assistant managers.
Right.
And I would take so much from one. I won't mention one name. I will not bring his name up. But there was one guy who was just taught me it was how not to manage.
Okay.
But I was doing a management leadership course in Uwick, down in Colley Avenue. Anyone who knows it, and it just played really into my hands. So instead of having going to university and learning, I was actually learning more from doing my role in work. Yeah. And because my A levels were harder than my degree, being honest with you. So, and actually maybe I did as much work as I nearly got a third actually. So I should have put a lot more work in.
What was your degree in?
So I did a recreational leisure management course. So I did coaching and business.
So linked to the work that you were doing. So you can understand why actually just getting out there and doing the job was a better way of learning, perhaps.
100%. It was like work experience without even knowing it, right? So some of my ethos or my essays were done based on the management there. So if they read them, it'd all be about them. So it's a bit like writing a book about them, but using an alias name, right? So I started there, met Anne-Marie. That's where this sort of clicked for me. Was this is where I belong. I don't know where this is going to go, but I know this is where I belong. So I started there. Anne-Marie went and worked down in London. We had a long-term relationship for a good 2 years down in London. I commuted with some really nice, funny moments where I'd sit in the toilet because I didn't have any money, and with a card, and those moments we just didn't have anything. Right? Yeah. I got myself into a lot of debt. But the lesson for me out of that was I got my chance self to get out of it. So I'll come to that in a minute because it's quite a part of my journey that I got myself into debt, but I learned the value of money afterwards. So I then went to Mitchells and Butlers, had a graduate scheme with them. And then
What do they do?
So Mitchells and Butlers is a pub company. I went and opened a bar in Newport called Edwards. It was rough and tumble. A lot of people, I loved it, but it was my first ever assistant manager's job. And it's so 2001. So I graduated in 2001, and that was my first ever assistant manager's job in Edwards.
So in the hospitality setting, an assistant manager is what you run the venue for the night maybe, and the general manager might not be there. So you're kind of second in command, but you have to make the decisions on the floor. You have to keep that place operating when it's open.
In essence, you're a glorified key holder that looks after it when other people are out. I say glorified key holder. Anything can happen.
Yeah, and you've got to deal with it.
You've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
So, a 21-year-old, I was on that graduate scheme.
You're also working behind the bar yourself. Assistant manager, you're not just sitting there waiting for people to come to you, are you? You're kind of...
Well, that's how I am. That's how I am. One story I will share with that. And first couple of shifts. So I started, and we used to have green carriers. You could fit about eight glasses, but if you were really clever, you could fit 56 because you could load them all up, right? But if you let them go, they're really dangerous if you cut your arms on them. Anyway, So I start this first week, and I grab one of the green things and walk out on the floor. And the manager on the time, one of the new managers went, whoa, 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 what are you doing? I said, mate, they're slammed. No one's on the floor. I'm going to get some glasses. He said, no. See those keys? You're a key holder now. You do not go on the floor and help that. You should be getting that team to do that. Bearing in mind, you're 3 deep at the bar. And I said, well, okay, no problem. But can you show me what I should do with the person then, so I understand for next time how to do it? So we went to this boy, grabbed him, said, go and get some glasses, which left us 3 short on the bar. And I'm like, just out of interest, just so I know, who's going to cover him on the bar then? Apologies, that was a technical error. That was my bad. I should have gone for an hour and a half. Do you want to start that again?
If you go back to... Well, I'm not producing this anymore.
Go back to... you were starting off with the story. Just
glass collector.
Yeah, the glass collecting. Go from where you picked up the glass.
Okay. So I went to grab the glass tray. It was green. Went out on the floor, and he went, whoa. That's not your job anymore. I'm like, right, okay. He said, you got a set of keys. See these keys? And he's swinging the keys around. I'm like, if there's anything I really dislike, those 3 years I've had in Megaball, there's lots of key swingers, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, right. So what am I going to do then? There's who else are we going to use? So we grabbed the bartender, put him on the floor. And I said, right, just out of interest, so I know for next time, what's going to happen with that bartender? Who's covering him? He said, well, we don't need to cover him. The floor's being done. And I looked at it and thought, I'd never want to be like you. That's not the leader I am.
Meanwhile, customers are getting annoyed.
Yes. Floor's getting chocked up. But what I train in now, in reflection, is unity. I train people now to be unified with their team. And unified with their team means getting on the floor and doing it with them. So, and I'm a massive advocate of that. But again, going back to it, that taught me the biggest lesson was actually, not everyone gets it right. You've got to find your own way. So that was my start, really. And then Mitchells and Butlers for 8 years. Had a great time. Built my way up to being one of the youngest GMs. So I was a GM when I was 22. So I was a general manager by 22.
And at that level, then you're getting more strategic, aren't you? You're like,
how? You like to think so.
What are we going to do with this venue? What's our, what kind of nights are we putting on? I mean, I don't know the business. I'm kind of guessing here, but it's that strategic level up, right? The GM. Yeah,
general manager. I always wanted to be one, right? So when I was in university, one thing I always looked at the GMs in down the road. I always wanted to be a GM, and I was on it like, let me be one. I want to be a GM, and they gave me flares on the high street, and I just remember going over to meet the GM that was going out, and I got the job. And back in the day, if anyone remembers St Mary Street, it was when it was like it had cars coming up and down and buses. It was a bus stop right outside. So I walked in, and bearing in mind for flares at the time, you had to wear wigs and 70s gear.
So this is like a 70s bar,
a 70s nightclub. Yeah. For those who know, flares is a 70s night, and a brilliant place to cut your teeth. It was the best. So I walk up to the front door, and there's a lady in an afro, big flares, and she's literally doing first aid with like blood everywhere on this guy. And the police officer's going, who do I need to speak to? Where's the manager? And they go in, she's the manager. And he's like, no, she's never the manager. She's got an afro. She can never be serious. And I'm thinking, I'm taking this over next week, right? This is a hell of a place to take over. But yeah, in essence, I took that on for a year. And it was a bit like, I was young. It was strategic. Being a general manager is a different role. I've got the utmost respect for it. I learned so much in that venue alone. For the year I was there, I loved it. And it springboarded me on because I knew I wanted to be a bigger GM.
Okay.
But so many good moments. So many moments I've...
So it's problem solving, basically,
it is.
Right? And you never know what's going to happen next because people, once they've had a few drinks, can do unpredictable things, right?
I can amen for that after 20 odd years. Amen for that over 20 years.
Although it gets more predictable, presumably, the more into your career you get. You've got to see stuff. And you've talked before about having this sixth sense of going, I know that person in that situation, in half an hour, there's going to be an issue.
Yes. And I can't tell you why I know, but I know. So when I go into things like now, we go to an airport or anywhere, and there's going to be a problem, I can it's a bit like a police officer or anything, I can sense it. I know there's going to be an issue here. Let's just stand back a bit and just see where this goes. But being a general manager, one was a privilege, but it was arguably it was just the biggest learning curve of my life. You know, and I was very proud, you know, that Mitchells and Butlers took me on to being the general manager of Tiger Tiger, and it allowed me the stepping stone. I was an AGM to start with, and I had great leadership. Karen was my general manager in Tiger Tiger when I joined and opened Tiger Cardiff. But Tiger Cardiff just changed my life.
But this was kind of the peak of Tiger Tiger, wasn't it? Like Tiger Tiger Cardiff. I mean, I remember when I first came to Cardiff years ago now, but they were still telling stories about what that place was like. I think it might have even just folded at that point or shut its doors. But yeah, you heard stories for many years about that place. So, you know, take us there and give us a couple of gems.
Right, Tiger. So, yeah, I was an AGM to start with 2 years, and then I went away down to London. And but we had that 2 year period, just had everyone come through the door. It was the only place back then in 2005, 2006, was the only place in Cardiff to go. And it was the only place for a reason, because there wasn't any competition. So we had people like, you know, without naming, you know, I say I'm going to name drop, but Wesley Snipes was probably my biggest night, you know? So we walked through the door and we had to sort of usher people.
What was he in town for?
He was filming
or something?
Yeah, he was filming in Cardiff over the road. So we
okay.
came in for a night out. So we had him. We had the Prince of Monaco in. Great story with the Prince of Monaco, right? So we got the Prince of Monaco in tonight, guys, right? You're going to look after him. There's a mate of mine, and I will mention him because he's a very good friend of mine, Mark Seaton. I said, right, you're gonna look after him tonight. Make sure he gets looked after. They got a pod, and we had a room upstairs he was in, opposite the VIP. He didn't want to go in VIP because of too much, so we gave him the pod opposite. So anyway, he had armed guards outside, and Prince, like I said, has he got drinks? Yeah, he's got drinks. He goes, like, run these drinks now. Get the drinks. And Mark went, yeah, no problem, I got it. So he grabbed these drinks and ran them out. And as he's got there, he slipped on the floor, all the drinks on him, and this flipping armed guard has got his gun out and gone like that. And this boy's just sat there, like literally white, got a gun in his face in the middle of a nightclub. And you're thinking, you couldn't write this in a book. And now I'm saying it on the podcast, right? But that moment was something I've never let him forget. But it was moments like that you think the Prince of Monaco's there with a lot of, like, David Walliams was in there. It was just a time that was just a special time.
You had all the rugby boys through as well, didn't you?
All the rugby boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the rugby boys. That VIP lounge was probably arguably the most exclusive. It was something very special. You know, one moment I had was, I could go on for weeks, but there was one moment I had, John come to the VIP lounge. And I'm like, okay, what's the problem? No, can you just get your ASAP code red? Code red was there's going to be trouble, right? So I get up there. Mikey Phillips. And I'm thinking, Mikey, come on, mate. Let's not have this problem here. And I look over and look at who he's sparring up with, and he's sparring with the Joe Kazagi. And I'm thinking to myself, mate, you got 49, he hasn't lost in 49 frigging fights. He's got a wrong matchup. And you got Mikey Phillips there. And I'm thinking, I've got to take someone down, right? So I said to the security, right, take Mikey Phillips down on the ground and we will take him out the door accordingly, right? So at that moment, we took him outside. He was good as fine as pie. But it was situations like that. I got lots of stories like that I could tell.
Yeah.
But Tiger was just special. There was no animosity at the end. They shook hands at the end and we got it all down. But it was just moments that for me, was special. And had a massive impact on where I am now. Without it, I wouldn't be the person I am today. The team we had in Tiger was just special. It was just a special time.
And that gave you a huge amount of confidence in how you could grow in the industry, right?
Yeah, 100%. Look, I knew at that point, if I could do a 2,000 capacity venue doing the money it was doing, leading 100+ team that they were, I knew I could do other things. You know, I knew that wasn't also what I was meant to do. I always thought Tiger GM was what I was meant to do. But when you did it, and I did it for so long that it ended up, I call it like the Matrix, where I could pull things as a GM that I knew what was going to happen. So I knew at that point, when I got to that point, that owning the business, going out and being an owner was probably what I needed to do next. But I got to that point, but it taught me so many skills. Being a general manager of a venue is such a I think it's probably the proudest thing I've done, is run a venue like that. But I'm not naive enough to think that Tiger gave me the contacts, not the other way around. And I had to go out and make that happen. So when I left Tiger, because the role comes with the job, but I made sure that I used Tiger to get my black book and my contacts, because that was my biggest strength. And since Tiger, I've still got lots of friends from those days because I made sure I kept in touch with them. And so I used Tiger massively to my advantage.
This is a good point to talk about something that I really want to ask you about. You are possibly one of the most natural networkers I have ever met. And you, like you said, you'll say hello to anyone, which I think in itself is a massive skill that a lot of people find very, very tough. A lot of people clam up, they don't want to talk to people. You've got the knack of doing it. So just tell us a bit, share a bit of knowledge as a natural to people, like myself, that don't find it as easy, and what are the key skills, can you break down your technique a bit? How do you just guard yourself up to go, right, I'm just going to go and talk to someone? But beyond that, you were quite calculated there in a good way about how you're going to use Tiger and build up your little black book. So give us a little bit of a masterclass on networking.
And thank you for that. The first thing for me is that you've got to have the rapport. So it's I always look at somebody and say, well, how do I gain a bit of rapport with this person? And I train in lowering the water level, and I think lowering the water level is what you've got to do with every single person. So I will always try and find something that I've got in common with that person. So, that's a given. I think if you're doing sales techniques, any technique, it's about how do you find that common ground. So, and I find it really natural, like sport. You said sport for me, it's a real easy one in. If I know somebody, especially in Cardiff and Wales, 9 times out of 10 they're going to like rugby, or they're going to love football, or they're going to play cricket, or they're going to do something with sport. So I'll always have that up my sleeve to start the conversation with. So if I was in that position, I wanted to try and really get on with somebody, that's how I would do it, is just find something I've really got in common with them. The bit then is about how do you take that step, isn't it? And I can only say that's got to come with practice. Confidence for me comes with doing it. And that crack on word comes with, you've got to do it to feel it. So if it's someone I really don't want to speak to, there's not many in the world that I've ever had a problem with speaking to. But if it's someone I really don't want to speak to, but I really feel like I've got to, then I'll always try and, like I said, that common ground bit to start with. But it does take me a bit of time to step out my comfort zone to get there. But I know I've got to do it. So I'll either... But that rapport bit is such an important part of trying to get that opening start of the relationship. It's like start with what you know and then move from there.
No, it's a really good point. And I think that's a really basic, solid bit of advice that maybe people wouldn't have thought is so key. So that's brilliant. I'm going to move us on because there's so many things we need to cover.
Yeah.
Like, I want to talk about the phase where you started running your own venues, which comes with its highs and lows. And I want to hear about both of them. So you've done Tiger. You feel it's the next move is to be an owner. What happens next?
So, just a slight segue into it. So, 10 Mill Lane was the first one. So I looked outside 10 Mill Lane and I saw a board up and it said to let. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. What is that? And I saw a 6 a.m. license on there. I thought, you know what, that's the one. 6 a.m. license. No one else has got a 6 a.m. license for me. So I thought, is this enough for me to leave Tiger, right? I'm on a 6-figure salary, or I'm on a 6-figure take home with my bonuses, right? So it was a real big, solid role. I'm not saying that for any other reason, but it was a big decision to leave it. 3 kids, a wife. But I knew when I stood outside there that 10 Mill Lane was the one that we could turn around and do. I've got to shout out, Mehdi was a massive support for me as a deputy. He was great. He sort of semi-supported me to get there. I had loads of ideas that I used and worked with. But 10 Mill Lane was the one that started me. Dave Abbott at the time was my business partner. He came in with me. Somehow we found each other. And 10 Mill Lane was when I went, no, do you know what? We can do this. So 10 Mill Lane we started. We opened it from scratch. It'd been closed for 6-7 months. It was Giovanni's venue, if anyone knows it. It's now called 10 Mill Lane, which is what we called it. And that started the journey of handing the notice into Tiger and going, well, do you know what? I do want to be in control of my own destiny. I didn't have a frigging clue what to do. I thought I knew everything, and I didn't have a clue. I went and opened Temple Lane thinking it was the right thing for me to do. And at the time, I would still say that was the right thing for me to do. Because
What was that first night like?
Oh, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. It was brilliant just to see a load of people that of old come and support. A lot of family, a lot of friends.
That's where the network comes in, though,
Yeah,
right? You were
100%.
never going to open and no one was going to be there because you've made those links over the years. They're going to support you on your journey.
Yeah, but what really hit home for me was the trust. You know, people. I remember Mike Jordan. He may not ever remember this, but Mike Jordan, great guy, local community in Cardiff. He did have egg. I'm not sure what it's called now. I'm sorry, Mike. I should know. But he said to me, "Look, whenever you throw something or open something, I know it's going to be a great place," and that really stayed with me over the last 5 years or 8, 9 years now. It is when Timberlane they popped up 10 years. It's like, wow, where's that gone? So, and that really, for me, made me, I was proud of Punch. I didn't know what money was. I didn't really know anything about business. But what I did know is how to run a good venue.
And if you filled that venue, then the money looks after itself, right?
Yeah. But the team were important. Fitz, Sean, I will shout them out. Gaia, Fitz and Sean, that I work with. Sean Lloyd is now the GM of Botanist. She's a brilliant human being. She trusted us and came over and worked with us to make it work. And Fitz especially, massive shout out to him. I upset him actually later on down the line, which I have said sorry for. But it was part and parcel of not knowing what I didn't know. I wouldn't have done that again the way I did it, but it's part of the ups and downs we talked about. But we had a great team. I stifled the team from Tiger, and they knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
They were very passionate about experience. What experience can I give the person? What drink can I put in that person's hands that are going to make sure they walk away with a smile? And when you've got people that drive that excellence and that my role was easy on that level. But yeah, loved Timberlane. I loved it. It's not my offer now. It's not what I would put my name to necessarily. I'm not upsetting the person that's got it now. It's not what I would have done. But that's just owners taking it in different directions, right? So I wish them all the best, whoever's got it now. But it was special. Timberlane was a special place.
While this is all happening in your professional life, what's happening personally? What's Jon like outside of work at this stage? Because you're riding high. Tiger, 6 figures, make your own move, 10 mil lane. That's a success. What's it like outside of the work world?
In reflection, very chaotic and not very pretty, if I was to be honest. However much sort of on the face of it, I probably was in probably the best place. But the reality was not so good. I think that chaoticness, I think I played into the being chaotic and yeah, I'm a maverick, I'm an owner. I can be that person that can do this today and do that tomorrow and do that the next day and drink then and do this and do that. But the reality was, it wasn't a great time in my life in reflection. And maybe that's the bit that held home with my boy. I just don't think I was a very good dad at that point, However much I supplied for my family, I don't think I was the dad I wanted to be or am now. Which is a big part for me. I didn't know it at the time, but I wasn't the person I really think I should have been. So yeah, however much, the big boy, big venues, doing loads of things, it certainly wasn't a great time. Looking at the person I am now compared to the person I was then, I wasn't really that proud of the person I was then, really, to be honest.
Now, the only other time you've said that to me, I wasn't proud of who I was then, was when we were talking another time about drinking. So, and you've had a journey with alcohol. Is it something you want to share with us?
Yeah, it's a real, isn't it? For me, it's part of who I thought I was. I think that's the key bit with it. When I've interviewed people on the podcast and they've given up and they've used that word sobriety, Did I go sober? Yeah, I did. Did I have a problem? Yes. I had a problem with drink, but I didn't have a problem. I wasn't an alcoholic. I can openly say that to myself. I know I wasn't an alcoholic. I didn't have a I just didn't have a very good relationship with alcohol. So I would go at it. And I would be that person that would be the first one on the dance floor and I'd be the last one to leave. And at the time, if I was talking about who Jon was the person that enjoyed that, because I did. And I found myself feeling a bit guilty of having fun, but I loved it. But I have had a yo-yo relationship with alcohol, and alcohol has always been one of those ones that I went to when I had, and really it was a mask for things that weren't going right in my life. So if I was to be absolutely honest, when my son came into the world, I struggled with that. I struggled with being a father because
I think many more men do than will admit to it.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't really know, and don't get me wrong, me and my boy have got a really good relationship. But I didn't know what to do and I think that really had an impact on me and Anne-Marie, me and my two girls that came along. And I wasn't a bad father by any stretch, but I wasn't now the father I know I could be. And I think now knowing what I do, that going back to the alcohol piece, I did have a problem with regards to the relationship with her. I said that, and it did take me to go to hospital on numerous occasions, to really get a grip with, it's not right. I don't want to wake up like this again.
I'm getting some interference feedback sort of thing. I don't know where it's coming from.
My phone's off.
Mine should be off.
I think it might be. You remember the other week? Well, we messed around with the lead.
Yeah. I know where I am anyway on this story to pick up. So, is it still okay?
I'm messing with the XLRs. Just it's that. That's just made it worse.
That's my bad.
No, it's not your fault.
Have a listen to that. 1 2 1 2.
That sorted it.
Okay.
My apologies. I don't know why.
That's all right. Well, at least we caught it. Otherwise, it would have been. I'll start from there. So, those numerous occasions I've had in the hospital. I think for those who don't know, or the bit I have shared with yourself before was, it took me 3 times. So some people I've spoken to have gone, well, how come it took you 3 times? The first 3 that I went to hospital, 2 of them first were in London, so I could get away with it, right? I could get away with it. And when I went back to that Tiger days, the main part we had was Jaeger bombs, and Jaeger bombs were like the normal thing. Drink was natural. You walk in a room, you'd have a Jaeger bomb. And a couple of times, or one time, I remember the first time I ever got picked up, I woke up in hospital in London, and I just remember the nurse's look. Like, look at you. Look at you, you're 30 odd years of age, and you got sick all down you, you've pissed your pants. Just look at yourself. I could see it in her eyes when I walked there. And I looked at myself and I thought, but I wasn't, but I walked out, I grabbed my bag, I grabbed my ticket to go home, and I just jumped on the train and went home. My wife didn't know any different. My family didn't know any different. No one knew anything apart from me. So it was very easy for me to go, it didn't happen. And the next time I did it was Cardiff. And there's a bit of a story around that. And in Cardiff, I actually went back up there the next day with a bunch of flowers because I felt that guilty that I'd wasted their time. But it still wasn't enough, you know. And the third time it happened was London, and the same thing happened to the first time. I just walked out and thought, you know, so 3 times I was in hospital, and given that a bit of context, it wasn't necessarily that I was in a dangerous place, but whenever I get really drunk, I would always lose my wallet, and when someone would find me, the only way to really do something with me was to put me in an ambulance and put me into hospital. But the fourth time was when I had Tamerlane, which goes back to that time where, you know, I wasn't really in the best place. And I remember, you know, a gentleman, I'll mention him, James Bufton. He's been in my life since as well. For fraud, actually, of all things. So James Bufton used to come to our venues quite often and spunk a load of money. And those of you who know, he went to prison. You know, it's public record. He went to prison, and unfortunately, I was one of the people that he'd taken money from. But that isn't relative. Well, it is relative, I suppose, to this story. Because actually, he was the one that on that night when I got very drunk, he was spiking my drinks. And my mate, a joint mate of ours, Pete Grzonka, said, "Mate, do you know that he's spiking your drink?" And at the time, I was like, "Yeah, I know he's spiking my drink, but I'm cool with it. This is my venue. I'll let him do that, you know." And that night, I ended up
just with like extra shots of stuff.
Nothing. Yeah, he was topping up with vodka.
Right.
Nothing malicious. Just and that night, I ended up outside Hugo Boss's door. So those who know Cardiff, Hugo Boss has got an entrance, and I was found outside that entrance. But the only way I found that out was the morning after I was again found in hospital. So this is the 4th visit I had, which again I'm not, for the record, very proud of at all. But led there. But when I woke up in hospital, I sort of could see this ginger, like auburn-haired person, and I thought, oh fuck, who's that? That isn't a nurse, and I'm pretty sure I know who that is. And it ended up being my beautiful sister. And she has got beautiful auburn hair. And the first thing she said to me when I woke up is, you know, "What the fuck are you doing?" Pardon my French, because that's how it came out. And I said, "What are you doing here? You know, where am I?" Like as though I knew exactly where I was. But like as though I was making out I didn't. And she said, "Well, look, John, you're in hospital. Do you know where you were last night?" And I said, yeah, I was in Tamerlane. And she said, no. She said, "You're out Hugo Boss's front door, and a gentleman found you. When he found you, you were choking. You had been sick and you were choking on your sick." And she said, "Look, if he hadn't found you, you know, there's a big potential that you die." And it was the next words that stuck with me. And I think that's the bit that got me to finish. She said, "Look, you got 3 kids and a wife. Today you might not have had them. And I said the famous words, "I'm going to stop drinking as of today." And her reaction to me was, "Bullshit. Have you heard that before?" And yeah, that was 11 years ago, and I haven't picked up a drink since. So it was a journey and a moment for me. And I should stop saying thank you to my sister, but absolute jokers. I don't know if you can cut that out, but that was my youngest daughter coming in right at the wrong time. So, but for me, that was a pivotal moment in my life. But what I will say is every day since that, and you know, we haven't really mentioned, and I know, you know, I lost a business within that. All those big moments that have happened have made me the person I am today. So I've had to go through those moments in order to get to a point of being the person, John, that I'm very proud of being today. So I'm not worried about the drink scenario. I'm not worried about what anyone thinks of who I was when I was a drinker. But I do know that I've had to own up to that journey, and it's been the best thing that's happened to me. And every day since, it's been the best version of myself that I've come together with. So I'm very proud of stopping. I'm very proud of not drinking since. I won't drink again because I know I've got the discipline to do not drink again. But I also know there's a lot of people out there that would resonate with that story. And I'm not saying I'm a hero, but I am saying it's possible. So can we just stop there? Emily, Hannah, I'm doing a podcast. Can you take the dog out and go and just be quiet, please? I did. I left a note on the voice note. Ted, out. I let you all know that. Can you let him out? Go upstairs and I'll come and see you. Oh, God. Pain in my bum. Apologies, because I did tell him all.
It's fine.
Give me a second.
Yeah, it's fine. Cool.
I think we got that.
Yeah. I can pick up. You ready?
Do you guys mind talking?
Yeah,
we're
one, two.
just talking about. I'm looking at a spangly cushion. I'm looking at a bench.
It was just something with my headphones.
Fine.
Okay.
I think it's important to say to you that it's hugely admirable to have given up the drink. 11 years is a hell of an achievement, and you say with such clarity, that's it and that will be it. But secondly, it's immensely admirable that you would share the story, because it's not an easy story to tell. It's not something that maybe everyone would choose to put out there. So I think hats off to you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. And I suppose like everything, it's it is part of who I am.
Yeah, no,
I know, and I think that I have been classed maybe as a bit of an oversharer in my time, but I do feel that part of that podcast piece and the why I do what I do and what I do with the training bit is about how do we help other people. And I can only think that sharing that story or sharing a story, if I can help anyone with it, then brilliant, and if that does help anyone, then amazing, because I think sharing is caring,
I think also it's very hard for someone who is asking someone for help, maybe as a coach or as a trainer, to have that person that you're asking to help you be someone who's comes across as never having had any challenge in their life. It's all been easy. It's all come naturally. I think that's hard to feel like this person is really going to be able to help me. It's far easier. I've found that. I've found the people that have been very instrumental in my life are often people where they can relate to the challenges because they've had their own challenges. And so, it can only make you a better coach and a better business person to have been through those challenges and come out the other side. Now we're going to we're going to get the lows out of the way. Okay. Go. Tell us about how you started and then lost a second venue.
Okay. So Temmer Lane happened. My business partner bought me out. So Dave bought me out of Temmer Lane. And then 29 Park Place came along. Same thing. And this has got something to do relatively to the story, because I stood outside a closed venue, looked at it, and I thought, Jon can do this. Jon can do anything. Nothing really goes wrong for Jon, so let's go with it. And there was a massive ego chip on my shoulder at that point, which overconfidence, yes. And 29 with help from, I will mention them, Finance Wales at the time. They were brilliant. They funded it. They gave me the money. They bought into me in Temmer Lane. They lent me the money to open up 29 and Dead Canary. Both of them great venues. Fitz came from Temmer Lane over. I took a few people on from Tiger, so really good teams. Gaia, Sean again. Fitz, same sort of team come into it. They were brilliant. But I opened them for the wrong reasons. I opened them because I thought that was the right thing to do. I opened them because I thought that was the natural route for Jon to go down. I've naturally been the GM here. I'm the big gun of the city. And at the time, that's how I felt. I definitely don't feel that now. But at the time, I'm the big gun. I've got to open these up. So I opened 29. I really enjoyed it. Hard place to open. Anyone who knows it, 29 Park Place. It's a tough location. No one's really got it right for a reason, right? And I know now why. So
it's slightly away from where all the other kind of similar venues
yeah,
are.
so look,
Beautiful part of the city.
great part of the city. Great pub behind it. Pen and Wig works really well. So I looked at the Pen and Wig and thought, right, let's have it. You know, again, the Iron Man, let's dust it off, let's go at it. We can definitely do it. But little did I know, we had a solicitor's, barrister's venue next door, and it's tough. The barristers wrapped that venue up in cotton wool, and we had no way of, couldn't put an outside area at the front, couldn't put an outside area at the front back. People couldn't go outside until 7 o'clock at night. You know, it's restrictive. And being John, didn't look at the detail, opened up the venue, didn't look at that finer detail. And that's what really, in essence, caught us out massively. And I lost a lot of confidence as we went through. I then started changing my mind a lot. And again, a key area for me was that changing the mind, like sporadically. So a lady came in, I remember, and if she listens to this, she'll remember. She was a regular, worked around the corner, said, John, can I have a word? This was going into like 3 months in before we just about to close it up. And she said, John, look, I love that chair. And I said, lovely, no problem. I love that chair too, it's a great chair. She said, yeah, I love it, but I love it by the window. And 3 weeks ago, it was by the window. And in a 3 weeks' time, it's been in 8 different locations when I've come in. And now it's back at the window. But can you just leave it at the window? That was an example of how 29 Park Place went. Mm-hmm. I, as a leader, changed my mind so often that I didn't give anything a chance to breathe and live.
Is that because you were searching for a solution? Could you see that it wasn't quite connecting in the way it needed to?
Yeah, I think it was part of John can fix this and it's going down. So to do it, the way to do it is to do what John does, and that is to come up with a load of ideas. So another one me and Anne-Marie were laughing about the other day, and it has got relativity. She walked out the door the one day, and Anne-Marie, my wife, worked for us as a sales manager in both venues at the time. And I'd invited a guy that I knew that had giant vegetables. And she walked out, and bearing in mind, we were on our bones of our arse at that point. And she said, John, let me just hold it. Let's hold it here, right? I know you like Kevin, your giant vegetables are brilliant, right? But what are giant vegetables going to do about us going bankrupt, right? and in John's world, what I thought we could do is do like this joint venture of getting us back out there with this giant veg. And, and Anne-Marie, bless her cotton sock, said to me, look, that's not going to save us, mate, right?
We need to sell a few more pints.
yeah. Before a giant marrow gets us out of trouble, right? So, but for context, that's how I ran the business. And however much I had loved ones, best mates around me, Al, Salb, they were my best mates around me, I didn't listen to them because they could never tell me because it was me that had to make the mistakes. And I made the mistakes. And Dead Canary, I was so proud of the team at Dead Canary, award winning, went to the top 8 in the country, and I was so but it wasn't me. It wasn't my offer. It wasn't like my offer was a nightclub, bouncing around, having fun. Dead Canary is a cocktail bar that looks after people. But what lessons I learned was the people drove it, and I love the experience that they give. So in essence, long story short, 29 Park Place went through. I had to make that call. It took me a long time to make it. I went like a yo-yo. I went over to my accountant's house and my business partner 5 or 6 times, and I changed my mind 5 or 6 times. To the nth degree that, both of them just sat me down and goes, look, John, just make a bloody decision. Are you going to keep this open or not? And what I needed, my accountant just said to me, look, you keep this open for 4 or 5 months and more, you are going to lose everything. You've not got anything at the moment, but what you think you've got, you are going to lose.
So they'll come after your house.
Everything will go.
You'll be bankrupt.
I'll be back. For the record, I went bankrupt anyway. And that's probably a separate thing because of the PGs that I signed that I didn't look at.
What's a PG?
So a personal guarantee. So going back to John, the detail, do let's go, I'm a bravado. I went into it and did it. I didn't worry about the PGs, the personal guarantees, but they came back and bit me right on the ass. Because I then ended up in, north of 400 grand, 500 grand, you know. So nearly £500,000 I signed my name to. So I had to go bankrupt in order. And look, and people who pick this up, and it wasn't, I took the pain because we did lose a lot. And I lost, the biggest thing I lost was my dignity. And I'm not sure if there's a price on that.
Yeah. Well, you got through it. And I think now is the time that we talk about Crack On, because out of the ashes of that has grown this incredible business. And, you know, I've been lucky enough to work with you in parts of it and see it grow in front of my eyes. And this podcast is part of it as well. So give us a little bit on the origins of Crack On, and then where we are now and where you're going.
Yeah, well, out of the flames, you know. So the business went, and the way I talk about it in my training sessions is, yes, I had to go bankrupt at that time, but it was the best day of my life.
Interesting.
Looking back, at the day it happened, it was the worst, but now looking back, it was the best because it was the biggest lesson I learned. But it also allowed me to...
What was the lesson?
The massive lesson for me is there's always someone better, but Jon isn't always right.
Wow. I mean, I guess we all have to learn that lesson at some point, right?
Yeah. I learned a massive bit about me, and since I've become a lot more humble, and I like to think that people can see that, you know. So all the people I've said sorry to over the time, I had to leave a lot of people go that are friends of mine that trusted me at that point, that I've had to say sorry to, and I've got to stop saying sorry. But I've got them to understand. I've got to just say this, that they've got to understand what I went through and what we went through. It definitely wasn't personal. But, okay, out of the flames. So my nan always said, and I say this in my training, my nan always said, you're going to be a teacher one day. And I was sat there, I took any job on. I knew I still needed to earn money. So, you know, I didn't sit on my laurels. I sold a lot of stuff that we had that was outside the bankruptcy. I thought, right, what am I going to do? So I got myself a job. I went down to Brighton for 2 years. So thank you, Jason Thornycroft, for that. He offered me, my old CEO rang me up and said, look, I know you're in a bit of a predicament. How'd you like a bit of a change? How'd you like to go to Brighton for a bit of time? And I've only ever known Brighton for pride. And I love the diversity of the city. And me and Amory went, yeah, let's go.
So was that back to being a GM?
I was back to being a GM. So I went back to be a GM. But luckily, again, going back to that point, I knew, looking at Prism in Brighton, I could turn it. It had all the makings of a turning venue. So I went in, it was doing 400 grand EBITDA, which is bottom line profit. Within 8 months, we were doing 940. So I doubled with the team around, but I just knew it was there for the taking. What a fantastic venue. Great city. Loved our time down there.
But you got to move the family.
Yeah,
I mean,
family, 3 kids, all moved down. It was big. To me, it wasn't big. To memory, it wasn't big. We'd moved 13 times in our time.
Oh, wow,
It was our 14th move.
Let's just do it again.
Let's just
we
go
know
again.
how to do this.
Yeah. And I feel for my boy a bit. It was his 4th comprehensive school he'd been to, right? So I feel for him on that, and we've had plenty of conversations around that. But, you know, what he's doing now, I'm very proud of, you know. So, and cometh the man. He's got friends in every city he's been to. Yeah. So we went to Brighton. I'm just backfilling to where Crack On is. And COVID came. Amory lost her dad, her mum. And I came home one time in COVID, saw her dad and thought, we've got to go home. I can't have her dad. You just met him before the podcast, right? I love her dad and I love her family to bits. And her dad was on his own. I said, right, we're going home. So, and she said, yeah, no, I'd love to. So let's go home. So COVID brought us back. And then I just sort of had a bit of an epiphany. I then went and became an ops manager head of ops for the group down in Swansea. The creative hospitality group with Bruno and Mike, and I did a year of that and soon found that wasn't the role for me. So I thank Bruno for his time and Mike, but it wasn't the role that suited me. It was all about being organised and not being and really and just being that strategic player. And that's not necessarily my major strength. Even though I've improved it, it's not my major strength. So I did a year in that. And in that time, someone reached out to me and said, look, I'm a trainer. Does anyone want to tell me my story? And that was Karen Turton. Purple Story. I reached out to her and said, look, I've got a story. Let me share it.
You have got a story.
Yes. So I shared it. And, she gave me an opportunity to become a trainer. So I spent 18 months with Purple Story, learning my trade. A bit like Tiger, getting my black book together, learning my trade, understanding what to do, getting in front of people, loving the energy that getting people to grow and to develop and tapping that. And then Crack On started from there, where I just thought, no, I know I'm going to go on my own at some point. This was where I was meant to be. Crack On then started. It was a word I always said. It's a word I always
It's
do
so
say.
you. It's so you. It sums you up perfectly.
Yeah. And so I cracked on and I got the Crack On business out. The podcast started 4.5 years ago. I started that through COVID. And part of that was, right, how do I coach? I love coaching, love training. Let's take people on a journey. And I will shout out Steve Dimmock. Steve Dimmock gave me a chance in Arwen up the road, and little did he know, maybe I'm confessing, it's the diary of the confessions, but that was our first client, and he gave me a shot, didn't know what I did, just said, come in, trusted me. We delivered a really good program with 3 of his team, and Gaucho rang me, which I thought, what? Gaucho? Of all people, like, they're a major brand on the high street, what are they ringing me for? And Sophie has been truly amazing. But I said to Steve, look, mate, they want a reference, and they think that I'm big, right? So can you do? And bless his cotton socks, he did not tell any porcupines or lies, but he made us sound really good, and we got the Gaucho gig, and then since then, we've been changing people's, hospitality teams, leadership styles. And other businesses now for the better. So that's it. Crack On now is, I'm very proud of where we are. I've got a facilitator, just taking on a couple of facilitators. Matt's one of them. I've got coaches around me. I now feel it's a business we can move forward, and we are. So, I'm very proud of where I am. And why I say looking back, Steve Jobs talks about, you can only look back to join the dots. He's bang on. Like, if I hadn't have gone bust, if I hadn't have sat outside 29 and taken that on, if I hadn't have had those tough conversations and lose those people, I wouldn't be sat here now talking to you in a position that I feel like I'm going into a third Ironman, where I'm in the best place I can ever be. So, in essence, the Crack On mantra is alive and kicking. And long may that continue.
So you're taking it more, it's obviously evolved, the Crack On brand and what it stands for and what it does. And I guess to a certain extent, you've followed your nose a bit. And, as I know, when you run a business yourself, sometimes it's as simple as what's working, do more of that. What's not working, do less of that. Even that is a lesson you have to learn as a business person. But you're now angling in towards hospitality, which, and it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You listen to this conversation and, there is no better thing for Crack On to be focusing on. But tell us a bit more about, why you are now homing in on that hospitality piece.
I suppose there's a couple of reasons that come to mind as soon as you said it. Probably one just popped in, so I may as well talk it. I think hospitality at the moment is in the biggest flux it's ever going to be in. And when I talk about flux, I'm a firm believer, and I'm not even sure you said it, but I know the saying is true. In chaos, there's opportunity. And there's a lot of chaos out there at the moment in hospitality. But what I like to think that Crack On does, and what we try to do within hospitality leadership, but it's all about the leader. Any venue, any general manager is only as good as the general manager that leads that team. So Crack On, what hospitality, one, is very close to my heart. 2, I want to see the industry thrive. I want to see people thrive within it. Because again, what it's done for me. It's not about, I've thought about it. It's not about that giving back, however much that's partially to do with it. It is a little bit about giving back, but I haven't finished yet. It's not about giving back necessarily on what I've had, but it is about other people identifying what they could have. That's what people are missing at the moment. I think hospitality is a natural segue in because I've lived it, breathed it, I've loved it. I think that's the important bit with this. I didn't love it for a bit. I questioned it for 3-4 years. When I went bust, I really didn't want to see. I didn't want to see another pub.
Of course.
I didn't want to see another bar. But the reality is, it's been the best thing that ever happened to me. You know, so, you know, I want to share that, but it's not about me. What I'm finding now is the people I'm bringing on, they've got a different journey to me. It's not right. It's not wrong. It's a journey. And they bring something else. And I need people around me to bring that out. So I pondered for a bit. Should I just keep it a Jon show? But I know now it's not about the Jon show. It's about building a team around me so I can take the experiences out. So we can share multiple experiences and build people in different ways. Because everyone learns, like I said, in different ways. So, yeah, we're on a journey. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And back in the day when I was in hospitality, every day was a part-time. I saw it as a part-time job. What I do now, I enjoy it that much. I don't see it as a job. I see it as something that is meant to be what I was meant to be doing.
That's brilliant. Leadership. What makes a good leader?
Someone who talks and develops their team. Right? So many people I talk to and connects with their team. I think there's a different level of connection. And if someone said to me, right, what do you mean by connection? I know leaders that do not talk to their line manager. Now, a leader is somebody that shows and leads and turns up. Now, if I'm not talking to you and not connecting to you, how do I expect that person to connect with anyone else? So for me, leading by example is paramount. But I'm a firm believer that just talking and connecting with your team is what a leader needs to do to turn up. And it's not hard. I've sat in many a board meeting where a team will go, right, okay, well, we've got to go back on the shop floor. When should we do it? Can we get the diaries out? And I'll go, just a point from me. Why don't you just go down now? Oh, we can never do that. Why would we do that? Well, why wouldn't you? There's a reason why there's an S&M in this business. It's because you've got to diarise a walk around. So a leader for me is someone that connects and shows and turns up and shows them the behaviours that they expect from the business. And that's the biggest thing I would say in a leader. Connect and lead by example.
It must give you immense satisfaction when you can get that message across and see the difference it makes in an organisation.
100%. 100%. When the penny drops, it takes time. Because I love it when an owner brings me in and they go, can you fix my team? And you go, yeah, but let me just caveat that. You do understand, let me just tell you, you do understand that in 3-4 weeks or 3 sessions time, you're going to come to me and say, I know I'm the problem. Right? I know I'm the issue. Okay? And it might happen in 3 or 4 times. It might happen 3 years down the line. Yeah. But you will tell me that. And hey presto, 9 times out of 10, they will come to me and go, Jon, you're right. I know it's me. How do I change? And I say to them, do you know what? It took me a bankruptcy. It took me nearly losing my house and family to understand that. So if you've got to this point now, 3-4 sessions in, fair play to you.
But that's the authenticity, isn't it? That you're able to give that insight because you've been there. And all the story that we've talked about has led you to that point where you can say that with total authority.
Yeah, and I you know, maybe what we're saying, I don't say it as often as I need to, but I don't because I however much I am very bold with my goals, I will not blurt them down someone's face. I'll take you back to a story just to come back and it'll finish it. My first Ironman, I've never told those 2 people that I was after them. Right? I never told the 2 people I'm chasing you down and I'm hunting you and I'm going to get a better time than you. I never did that.
Until this podcast.
I did it. Well, until this podcast, but also until afterwards.
Okay.
Until afterwards, and someone said to me, like, what was your time? And I say, they're my time. And they said, well, why did you do it for? And then I'd say, well, yeah, I was chasing those 2 because they beat me. But I would never go, I want to beat those 2 people.
Yeah.
It's a bit like I will never say to someone, I've lost a business. You've got to listen to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You pick your moments, don't you?
Yeah, but for me, Andy, that part of it is the humbleness, and I want to be humble in everything that I do, but and every day I'm probably becoming more humble every time.
So we end. You've asked this question many times, and now you have to answer it yourself.
Yeah.
If you could go back to an 18-year-old Jon Saunders, what would you tell him?
It's a really interesting question for me, because I ask it all the time but don't ever think about it myself. You're gonna get ups and downs, right? You're gonna get ups and downs. Lean into the downs, but when the ups are there, shout about the ups. Because I think there's a part of me that I possibly haven't celebrated the ups enough. However much I talk about the downs quite often, because I'm quite easy to talk about the downs. I don't ever go to the gym with an Iron Man shirt on. I don't have an Iron Man tattoo on my leg. And maybe there's a point at which you should celebrate the ups, because the reality is you never know how long you're going to be around.
Wise words. On that, we will end. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you very much for interviewing me, mate. That was awesome.